What's going on, everybody? Hope you are having a wonderful week so far. First of all, before we get into the podcast, please hit subscribe. Please give us a review if you are enjoying these podcasts, and please share them to your mates. It keeps the podcast going, and I love you forever if you do that. So, podcast time this week, and I'm really excited about this one. Jax Jones is somebody that I have been friends with since around 2018. He's one of the hardest working people I know out there. He's one of the best pop writers I've worked with, and I believe that's in the industry generally. He's been behind some of the biggest dance records in the world, and also he has an extremely successful career in writing dance records for himself. This conversation was really, really good, and we got pretty deep towards the end. So, without further ado, Jax Jones. Mr. Jax Jones, what's cooking, man?
I'm good, bro. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm good. Where are you? Looks beautiful back there.
Oh, thank you, man. Just in my garden, there's a paddling pool, a splash pool just there.
Nice.
That's I'm out here somewhere in the UK, close enough to an airport, which is great for me now. I grew up in London, and this is more green space than I've ever had. Concrete jungle. I've exchanged it for horse. Yeah, I've exchanged it for literally behind my house. I got some horses. They're not mine, but like they're just hanging out. Some horses, you can go and see them, and some cows. Although poor cows, I think they're getting ready for slaughter. It's that kind of place. And then, yeah, it's very quaint. It's nice.
How do you find it?
Oh man, it was basically I love it because during lockdown last year, I spent most of my time up north. My wife is from a county called Lincolnshire, and it's just like big up Lincolnshire. Yeah, and like we just went there because we wanted to just have more space, and there wasn't another house for like, I don't know, half a mile either side. So I was just making tunes on my on the dining table in my father-in-law's house, and we had a little baby there. And I think just during that time, I was like, I'm ready to leave. And it's actually banging for your creativity because it kind of reduces the amount of information you're taking in, and you just don't leave as much unless you have to. So it's like it's just perfect, man. So I really do love it. I'm probably sounding well old, but it's just about that stage, man.
Mate, honestly, like I've always grown up in the country. So like for me, growing up in Somerset, like we don't have neighbours. Like we have fields. We can go on walks in the fields. It's like I'm super lucky to have had that, if you know what I mean. And I think it's different. The creativity for me is different from being in a city. Like I think there's a part of the city that gives you a creativity, and then there's a part of the countryside that just allows you to like go deep into the creativity. But I think it just different times in your life, you need different things, right?
Yeah, I think I don't regret where I grew up, because I think London is such a special place for like the amount of culture that I got exposed to. I mean, I'm Turkish and Chinese, right? So already it was an interesting.
It's a mix of everything.
And then the music in my house was my stepdad was Nigerian, and he was around most of my life. So like his music collection, it was mostly black music. So it was like, so that was my musical diet. And then just through friends, I was exposed to more stuff, whether it's like, I wouldn't have got that if I wasn't living in London. It's like one of the only places in the world that you could have that. And then just the opportunities, do you know what I mean? Like, there's just so much stuff for kids. If whatever you're into, there's something there in London. Whereas I guess out here, you're left to your own devices a little bit, which has its pros. Do you know what I mean? As you say, you find yourself digging in a little bit more. Perhaps you're a bit more focused.
I think it makes you become a good introvert.
Yeah.
Because there's like no other distractions really around here. But again, the negative side of it is growing up here, you have none of that culture. Like, without sounding disrespectful, like there's like a couple of Indian families around here, and there's no black culture at all. I have to go to Bristol for that, which Bristol's rich of that culture, but like, yeah, there's nothing. It's just white farmers, which which is great if you want to make country music, but yeah, it's
Do you know, I realized that
different.
about myself. Like when I listen to, have you ever like done an exercise where you listen to music that you don't like?
Yeah.
And you try to understand what you don't like about it. And my thing is definitely like when something's, because black music is so part of, like, just was so part of my DNA growing up. It's like, if there's a record that doesn't have those elements in there, even whoever's singing it, but as long as there's no thread line of some sort of like interpretation of it or something, I really just don't relate to it. I find it really hard. Like, so like some aspects of dance music, like there's some techno where it's so rigid, I'm like, it's just German
as fuck.
There's no swing here. Like, I can't, I just can't. Like,
yeah. No, I
do you know what I mean?
What music do you? What would be what you would listen to that you dislike?
What now?
Yeah.
Oh, what that I listen to that I dislike now? Like, oh man, like kind of very Germanic, stiff techno. So it'll be like, or overly aggressive music. Like I still struggle a bit with metal. It's like, and kind of, and now so those two genres are like, I just can't, like, it just doesn't, I just can't get any further with it. I'm trying and like trying to see the beauty in it, but I really struggle.
Have you tried country?
I love country,
mate. I've got to send you a playlist.
Send me the playlist.
My mate made this playlist, and he's from here, around here. Like, country's not big in the UK, obviously, but Jesus Christ, is the best playlist I've ever heard in my life. Listen to it all the time, and it's like, I don't know what it is about country, but the simplicity is so good.
I mean, it's soulful. Like, it's got a
is.
lot of, even though, when you think of country music, you think of obviously someone white, but ultimately it comes from the same area. Like, it's got a lot of blues in there. It's got a lot of like soul in there. And I think that the storytelling in country is amazing. And a lot of
dudes getting burned by their wives. Let's be honest.
That's very true. It's quite sad, isn't it? Like, some of the music, and I definitely like the cheesier side of country. I remember I was obsessed with what it's called, the band Perry. Have you ever heard of them?
No, I haven't.
They got this record. It's like, if I die young, bury me in satin, bury. And it's just like so hooky, and like the harmonies are so fun to sing along to. It's like proper fun, man.
Yeah, I'm into like the darker side of country. There's
whiskey lullaby.
Literally. there's this guy called Coulter Wall, and he's like a cattle farmer from like Saskatchewan. I'm not even saying it right, but in Canada, in the necks.
Yeah.
And you look at him and you're like, oh, he just looks like this normal like farmer dude, right? And he sings, and he's got the like deepest soulful voice, and you're like, how the fuck did that come out of his mouth? And his songs are so dark, but there's just something about it that you're just like, this is amazing. Like, I don't care. He's talking about killing his girlfriend because she cheated on him, and he's in prison. And it's like, it's dark, but I'll send it to you. It's really good.
I'm keen to hear that.
Yeah.
I remember, it's funny because dark music, you like dark music. I remember we always talk, and I always lean like that, like kind of brighter, like kind of lighter stuff. Music. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? And we always, I think when we work together, that's what makes it kind of interesting. And I think like in kind of R&B growing up, there was very little dark music. It was like was bedroom music.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it was more. It was about crooning to women and pleasing them. But I remember there was an artist called Life Jennings, who was in prison. He wrote his album in prison, and then he got out and performed at like one of those talent shows that they used to have in New York, and he just blew up. And it was just him and this guitar, and I think that was the closest I would get to something a bit harder at that time, where he's like singing about being locked up and like him and his guitar and waiting to get out and all that. Like again, dark music I do struggle with because it just wasn't around. I think
is that just because it wasn't you didn't grow up around it, or
it just wasn't there. Like you had the blues, but the blues was always quite it was dramatic in the way they'd sing about something dark. Although it was sad what they were singing about, it was all like that. So you just kind of like, that was just the way it was.
I think in blues, like the heritage as well, it was more so about like, we're in a shit time. We're going through shit times. So let's try
like escapism.
Yeah, exactly. Which you can see, like, even like, I don't know if you, I'm sure you have, but like listen to like a lot of the like the slavery or the cotton field kind of chants and songs. And even though they're dark, because
they were uplifting
exactly
at the same time.
And like it gives me goosebumps thinking about it, like imagining those people in the cotton field singing this. Like it's very tribal, and I think tribal brings people, like it brings people together. Even if you're in a shit situation, there's some happiness to be seen in every situation that you're in, and I think that's what's certain music does. I agree with you on the metal side of thing. Like there's some rock and stuff things that I like to listen to, but that's like the whole screamo thing. My manager, he loves like scream shit, and I'm like, dude, I can't, man, just can't.
How do they make their voice like that though? I think that's
a
for
talent.
me, the technical aspect of it is like quite sick. Like I remember I was in Louis Vuitton and just I was on a bit of a.
Of course you were.
But this is actually a bit silly. I was like doing a bunch of these kind of. I did like the Queen's Jubilee and like bits and bobs, and I was like sick of stylists. I'm just gonna dress myself. What would look? I'm going Louis Vuitton. That's what. That was as far as I went, right? And but I remember I met this really fun guy called Leandro. Shout out Leandro, and he turns out he's a metal singer as well as working there. And he's just this short, quite fun, charming Brazilian guy. And he played me his stuff, and he was like, I was like, how do you sing like that?
Yeah.
Like, that's incredible. Like, when he talks, he's like, hey, Tim. How's it going, bro?
Yeah. It's mental, isn't it? It did. Like, I was a huge fan of Linkin Park back in the day.
Big fan of Linkin Park,
when they
that was soulful, man. Linkin Park was soulful.
Yeah,
man.
and then Chester would just fucking scream randomly. And, But I listened to that.
You wouldn't class that as metal, though, would you? Class that as like
more like
it was like emo pop.
Yeah,
pop
pretty
music,
much. Yeah. But they had an album called Meteora, and they gave like a DVD with the album of like how they made it. It was super interesting, and how Chester would like scream, and you're just like, they didn't know how his throat just like took it, because there was no other skill behind it apart from just fucking screaming as loud as you could, but he could do it every time, and his voice would never break, and you're like, how? But these people, man,
he trained it, man.
These people.
I love what you said about the escapism aspect of music, because I think it's true, because I remember when I was growing up, music at the time, like I was listening to a lot of rap and like just there's a DJ Semtex podcast where he talks about hip hop. I think it's called Hip Hop Saved My Life, right, or something like that. And like, me and him were talking, and for me, like that music, on the surface, all this bravado and like, but it was like they were like raising you through what they were telling you and giving you like ideas and teaching you about like how you want to approach things and giving you courage at points. You know what I mean? Like it is so true. It's like my reaction is to find more uplifting stuff rather than like trying to swallow in it. Like I think the saddest album I ever like properly listened to was like Damien Rice. which is just
You're
the
gonna laugh
saddest
so
shit.
much. Literally, before this call, I was listening to Ryex and Damien Rice. Literally before this.
It's so sad.
Yeah, it's depressing. It's really depressing. But I think like with the whole hip hop thing as well. I think, what was it like growing up listening to US hip hop when you were obviously growing up in London? Because that's like, it's
Yeah.
different. It's very different lifestyles, although they can be very similar, but it's also very different.
Yeah, I guess at the time you bought US imports. That's what I used to do.
yeah.
I used to go and on Saturdays I used to get £2 a week pocket money, and I would save it, and once a month I'd buy a CD. Like, and at the time I was buying like Flip Mode Squad, like, which was Busta Rhymes, like whole, and you'd just buy it off the basis of one record. Like, I used to like listen to the radio, Choice FM, that used to be the one, and you'd hear one song and then you'd buy the album and you take that risk, and or someone would recommend it, or I'd often nick the albums that my dad bought and make copies and put them back. He never really liked me touching his music, so that's how he used to do it. And I guess it felt like it was kind of cool because it was real celebrity.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like they're over there. These Americans, like, they're amazing. They're so magical. Like, I remember just being a bit just like, how is this made? How is this equipment? We must not be able to get it over here. Like, and at the time, you just had like the emergence of some of the British rappers. Like, I remember Black Twang, and they were like, at the time, British rap was like super conscious.
Yeah.
It was very backpacky.
Okay.
And and I often used to laugh. The way I'd imitate British rappers, it was like, just how many complicated words could you get into a sentence, but didn't really make sense. So it would be like, as I sit here contemplating my cheese on toast, the melted goodness on top. It's like,
do you think that came from the MC culture? Because fucking MCs talk so much shit on the mic in drum and bass sets.
Maybe, I think perhaps, what it was? It was like, it's the English accent. We hadn't found a way at that time. Like, now we've definitely owned it. We found our swag on a record as with a British accent. But I think it was just, if you weren't able, the American accent was just so synonymous with music. It was just hard to find the flow, and it just always sounded a bit dorky, the British accent. I remember the first time I like thought a British MC it was when we started getting grime and the tempos changed. Like, grime was like massive for me. I started like, it's kind of like, outside of rap and R&B, that was the most, I would say, vocational genre I started to make. Like, was where I started to get releases out with people and stuff like that. Yeah, it was. There was a studio in Brixton called Raw Material, and it was just a community studio. And I remember I was using the studio. I met other rappers there, and that's where I started making, like, recording them and giving them beats, and like, and then that, obviously it was like street rap. So around the time, you had a lot of drug dealers, big crews in Brixton, and they'd make mixtapes. Yeah, and it was the hardest shit. Like, it was like there was a crew called Roadside G's, and there was like, one of them still going now. This guy called RA. Yeah, and like, they would just come in and we'd make songs. And I remember, and then Big Narstie. I bet Big Narstie all those years ago. Obviously, some of your listeners probably won't know who he is. He's amazing. Like, he was always a character. Like, he would just sit in the studio, get high, and make these songs. And I did this song with him called Brushman. And there was another guy called Ripper. That it was me and him. We were the duo. Like, and he was like the more beats guy, and I was like the musical guy.
So did you ever rap?
I definitely tried to rap. Like, I was fully rapping from like 11, from like age 10 to about 16. I was rapping. I fully was trying to rap. I was a Nas toy. Like, so I was basically anything. I would take like Nas verses and rewrite the words to learn the flow. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I remember I won my year 6 talent competition doing something similar to Men in Black. I did a Christmas version, and I had this rhyme book, and I just would write. And I think the nail in the coffin though for my rap career was when there used to be an open mic called Deal Real in Carnaby Street, and I went there to spit, and just no one was really feeling me, and I was like, maybe this isn't for me. This rap stuff.
Maybe it should be game over. Stick to the pop career.
I know, and then I was singing as well,
Yeah.
because I think at the time, like I was singing because if you sang, you get girls.
Yeah.
So like a lot of my friends, that were singing, just all the girls would just be loving them and just go, oh, he's so amazing. I was like, right, I need to sing. And like,
it's amazing what you do as a kid to get girls.
Literally, like it was like that was the thing, man. So like there was a big artist at the time called Music Soul Chant, and that was who I was trying to sing like. It was kind of like neo soul stuff.
Yeah, because my intro to UK hip hop, I guess it was like early day grime, but it wasn't really grime then. And it was this guy called Skinny Man.
Yeah.
Council State of Mind. That was literally one of the first vinyls I bought ever.
That's sick.
But I never really got into the whole UK hip hop scene until Dizzee got involved with it all.
I mean, Dizzee is classed as a dance album in some circles. I remember looking at it on Mixmag, like it's Dizzee. I mean, that album was quite seminal for me.
Yeah, Boy in the Corner. Yeah.
It was the first kind of moment that I guess you met an artist that had that much influence, but did it all himself, pretty much. Just him on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
And I remember that was like a myth at the time. Like we literally talk about that like it was Puff the Magic Dragon. Like, oh my days, like he made this on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
And just the stuff. He was using words that we all used, and it was the first time you like heard yourself, but then kind of reaching all of those people. No, it was a massive, massive album for me, and
I think it was
I
like
feel a bit complicated talking about it now because now he's not held in high regard, but it kind of sucks.
Yeah, but I feel like the past. We can still talk about the past of how iconic it was at the time, and let's be honest, he was the biggest thing that happened to British grime, Black British culture in music at that time. Because he had
it was the first like truly authentic crossover album.
Yeah.
Like the rest of, it was one of the reasons why I stopped making black music.
Really?
Like you couldn't, not that album, but just generally, because that came out, I must have been in my early 20s, and you couldn't really make money from black music at the time. You couldn't make a career. It was very much like it was harder to support yourself. Do you know what I mean? And I remember a lot of the grime acts would make pop records. Yeah. Like that's what you did. Like, you had
N-Dubs.
Tinchy. I mean, N-Dubs were pop from the start, but like Tinchy, he's from Rough Squad, and then he was a super credible grime act. Then he started making pop music. Wiley with Wearing My Rolex and all that. That's Skepta's early stuff. Like after the grime stuff, it's like straight up pop music, because to survive, you had to like start making really commercial music. And I think the Boy in the Corner album was like your kind of, it's so authentic, and then it connected with so many people. It's like, oh, this is cool. But it's almost too late, because I was like, I made that leap. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think the thing with Boy in the Corner as well is that it was commercial but still underground. And I think there's that thing is like, there's only a few people in this whole industry that I feel personally has actually been able to nail that.
Oh, that's the holy grail of artistry.
Right.
Like if you can nail like being super credible and underground, and then it becoming pop music or like becoming mad popular, like that spot is reserved for a handful of people. And it's so funny. People laugh when I refer to my career as being quite mediocre, but like they go, "What? How can you say that?" Whatever. But it's like in the grand scheme of things, like the first bit is like breaking in, and then it's like everyone's ahead of you, right? And then when you get in, and then you look at what everyone else is doing, and when you deep it, like the layers to some of this shit, it's like that's the cream. It's like if they've managed to do that, and I guess you've got Daft Punk, you've got Kendrick Lamar. In the UK, you've got like Santan Dave is probably our new version of that. Do you know what I mean? Where it just becomes pop. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The new Sick Silk stuff.
Who?
The Sick Silk stuff, which is who is that? Oh, I have to Google this. It's because
I haven't heard of them.
You definitely have. It's a duo. I don't know why I haven't. Anderson .Paak and
Silk. You're talking about and Bruno Mars. Oh yeah, it's hard.
Dude, that stuff is just legit as fuck. But even I find like even the grime stuff that's in the UK right now, like there's still a pop side to it, which I feel is not what Dizzee did.
True.
There's still like melodies, and there's still like the records that do really well, there's still like a hook melody that kind of keeps the radio happy,
entertained. Yeah. Well, I think Santan Dave is probably the most interesting about that, because I think you shouldn't be afraid of a hook. Like at the end of the day,
agree,
you know,
I've always been afraid of them.
Yeah, you always fight me when we talk about this, but like there's an art form in writing that I think it's what you put around it, and like, you know, it's Dizzee's first album, although it sounded hard as fuck, but there were still choruses.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
yeah.
I think that it's kind of, if you want to go on a record and just do stream of consciousness for 4 minutes, just don't expect it to sell that much.
Exactly,
or that not many people will hear it, because I think you need those hooks for it to travel. Do you know what I mean? And that's always one of my main priorities when I'm making music, is I want it to travel.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like, I always look for that in an album, you know. And so with Dizzee, you still had like I love you.
Yeah.
I and like, oh, he's just a rascal.
Yeah.
He's just like, these were all like, and like Jezebel and all that, like they were still hooky.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And his whole flow was hooky. Like you could remember the whole verse. I think that's still important. Do you know what I mean? Like, and even I guess with Dave, where I'm getting to with that is like, you got someone who doesn't have any features. There's no singing.
Yeah.
It's just him and talking about his life and how he thinks about himself or whatever it is, and that is hooky in itself. Like just the way he says it, and like, and then for it to go number one, and
it's mad.
Do you know what I mean? And do bigger numbers than some US rappers in their first week. Do you know what I mean?
Which is amazing to see that you can do that nowadays with the streaming and how that is. Did you see the Dave Brit? I think it was during lockdown. The Brit live show that he did when he sang his song
with
Black.
The electric guitar and that of her dance.
No,
through the fire in the fire.
He did Black on the
piano. Yeah.
Man, that like gives me goosebumps every time I watch it. If I'm feeling sad, I watch that.
That lifts you up. That's amazing.
I think it makes me feel worse, but it's it's a moment for sure. No, I love that. Talking of hooks, you are literally the hook king, I would say, in current.
I appreciate that.
Current music, and not in a way where it's super obvious. Although I think some people would say your hooks are obvious, which I think is actually like, it's definitely a good thing, and I don't mean that in a horrible or a disrespectful way. The way seeing you work is like, I say this behind your back to everybody, but you are literally one of the best songwriters I've worked with.
I appreciate you,
and
man.
I think it shows in your success. Why is writing a hook so important to you?
Wow, it's a big question. I think for me, the music is about like growing up on producers like the Neptunes, and they used to have accolades like, you know, I think at one time the Neptunes had like 20 records on the radio. And I also love Darkchild and Timbaland. Like the success was part of it. Like, and so I never set out to make music just for myself.
Yeah.
So part of doing that is writing something that's hooky. And the for me, that's also kind of tied into just my experiences in my relationship with music was very much like life or death. You know what I'm saying? Like I had to make music work or you're kind of fucked. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's very hard for me to just make it and be pure self-expression.
Yeah.
So the hooks, it's like a balance of wanting lots of people to hear it. And I naturally like hooky music. Don't get it twisted. Like I would always gravitate to that kind of music. As like kind of like I'm an observer of art, so I'll watch something very art house, I'll read something very deep, and I'm quite academic as well, so I can, but then I'm super basic. Yeah. So like, I like, you know, if you were to ask me what my favorite film was, it wouldn't be like, I don't know, Shawshank Redemption or something. It would be like Rush Hour, bro. I love Rush Hour. Like that bit when Chris Rock does the dance, that's my shit. Best bit. Right. So I like, it's kind of, you know, that all comes out in the studio, and the finding that is like, it's like super exciting to me. It's like, oh man, like we've stumbled on this perfect group of notes and words. And for me, when that comes together, it's like something in my brain just clicks, and like I'm just like, oh, I get very excited. It's like, you know, you've found the pearl in the oyster, you know, it's like, this, and I start to imagine all the people that are going to listen to it and love it, and it's going to be their favorite song for 6 months. And it's just like, that gives me a big buzz. Like, it's like, and it started from nothing. Yeah. I just love that power in that. Do you know what I mean? And that I'm a big fan of like art that is quite, it appears simple, but underneath the amount of decisions that had to be made to get to its simplest form is a really interesting exercise for me. Like, I guess on a basic level, it's like, what's the perfect kick sound? It's like,
totally. Because I was
many times over. Do you know what I'm saying?
Like, I was on the way back from seeing a mate this morning, and I was like, let me listen to all of your stuff on the drive back. And I was like, as an elements of all of these records, they're so simple. Meaning there's very little, it's not like, oh my God, where did that sound come from? I did not expect that, or I didn't expect this, or like, how the fuck has he made this? It's like, no, there's literally a fucking amazing hook. And that's all we need here. Like, and there's complexities in the melodies and in the hooks, but other than that, that's realistically what you're doing. But people don't realize how hard that is. Like,
it's hard to do.
It is, and also the amount of time. Like I've seen how long it takes you to finish a record. If I compare that to myself, like I literally, I'm like 3 hours and done. Otherwise, I hate it. But it's like, let's talk about the process so people actually understand the process of writing a pop record, if you know what I mean. Like, how long does it actually take? Because it is a process for you, and I know it is.
I mean, it varies for different people. Like, I think, I don't know if my way is the best way, but for me, on average, it can take from 6 months to a year to get. And I'm not working on it every day. Don't get it twisted. I like slow burn on stuff. I hate when I have to deliver something in a week. Do you know what I mean? You get to that because I tend to like tweak even up to release. Like if I'll be changing the master out and all that, those processes. But generally that process is like, don't fuck up my song. Yeah. Because once I've got to like mix level, it's pretty much there. Do you know what I'm saying? So like it's more so I like to leave it space for it to ruminate. And I like to let life take over a little bit to give me something I might inspire me to do something on it, or because they're like little puzzles.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's not always fun. It can be quite agonizing, and my attention to detail, I've now learned, isn't average. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like I will try to like, I'll spend time and I won't let go on a record if I think there's something there. Like,
I agree with that.
I remember one of my songs, "This Is Real," with Ella Henderson. I had that for 6 years. Do you know what I mean? And I'd still kept coming back to it because for me, the music is, I guess, perhaps something I should explore in the future is trying to push myself from a sonic perspective of like, what can you do to get certain sounds? But like the kind of, I think because of the internet, for me, a little bit, it's kind of ruined that mystique a little, you know. When with like the producers that I grew up on, it was never about sound design. No. It was more about the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? So it became, where did they sample that from, or what keyboard are they using to get that? Essentially a stock sound. Like, it's like, so the actual barrier was less about expertise. It was more about exposure or like money. Like, could you afford that? Do you know what I'm saying? And like, so.
But I also think, I sorry to butt in, but I also think like sound design and writing pop records, which quintessentially is what you do, to one of the best abilities at this moment in time. Like, I don't think they go hand in hand.
No.
Because I think the only person that I would kind of say does it to a certain extent, but I don't think they write pop records that well, or they have done in the past, but not as consistent as you, is Flume, where his sound design is, and there's going to be loads of people going, oh, what about this person? What about this person? But like off the top of my head, Flume does it in a way where he can write extremely great pop records and his sound design is insane, but they're still not the pop records that you write. It's very different.
But on Flume's records, the sound design is the chorus. Like, that's the feature of the record. Like, you wait for that drop. For me, it's always about the song.
Exactly.
Like that's the bit you're looking to for the record. So for me, the music is actually just get out of the way.
Yeah.
But be present enough to keep you there. Do you know what I'm saying? Or and obviously, if I can find a hook in the music, then we're fucking flying. Do you know what I mean? Like,
which you've done many of times.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, man. Like, it's. I need to do it more, to be honest with you. I used to write riffs all the time and just try and find stuff. And I think part of the challenge of it becoming that DJ lifestyle that I've adopted, it's kind of at odds with all of that, because you just, you have to make records quickly when you're moving around. So but I went through a stage where I was in a band and I was signed to Atlantic. And I was always writing songs. I've been writing songs since I was 13. But where I really learned to write songs was when I was in this band. Like, because that's when I got exposed to essentially white music.
Yeah.
So, like, it was the first time I really rinsed myself in Bob Dylan and Johnny Cash. And I talk about Damien Rice, all this depressing shit. And then, like, but I was obsessed with it because this is where the kind of do or die thing come from, is like, I was the kind of person, because I had nowhere else to go, I had to make every situation work. So like, I was in this band, I didn't know anything about the genres that we were referencing, so I'm going to go deep. And I just went so hard, like, and in terms of songwriting, it's amazing. Do you know what I'm saying? And country, and then the lighter stuff, like the script, or like Coldplay, like for that kind of bigger stuff. And by the end, and then I worked with some of the best songwriters in the world, like Egg White.
Was that during the band when you were in the band?
During the band, yeah. We were signed. We made an album that never came out. We were on Atlantic. It was a big deal. Like, it was like, and traveled around the world writing songs. You must have written like, I don't know, 500 songs.
Wow.
Like, and it's full of rejection. It was a very difficult time, but out of it, I just learned how to write songs properly from like a formal perspective.
Yeah.
And I took that into dance music when I like, it got like, the idea started looming, and the full first execution of it, we did I Got You, right, with Duke Dumont. And then the second is the first time I fully put that to the test was when we did Won't Look Back.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sat and I wrote the whole song on my own.
Yeah.
I remember I hated the sound of my voice. So I got, there's a girl called Naomi who used to do BVs for Paloma Faith. And she sat with me and would sing the things I was singing to hear it back in a diva kind of style.
Yeah. Which record was that, sorry?
It's this song called Won't Look Back. It's no one comes close to you. Your love, it makes me stronger.
Was that Duke or you?
Yeah, it was like number 2. It was his record.
Yeah.
Over here.
Yeah, I got it.
And it was just like, okay, cool. Like, this is fun. Because I remember after I Got You, literally the brief was, need to follow up. Like, let's get to work.
And it's got to be better.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely worked better because I Got You is probably my purest. That and You Don't Know Me. And I would say, Where Did You Go? A little bit.
What about Ocean Drive?
Ocean Drive was more, when I say pure, like Ocean Drive was a little more traditional. Do you know what I'm saying? Okay. Like sonically, Duke had this amazing beat.
Yeah.
And where I guess we put a shift in on Ocean Drive is like me and Boy Matthews, we spent 12 hours on that chorus. And I gotta give so much love to Boy Matthews because he sat and just bared with me, like, as I go, no, it's not good enough. We need to keep going. We need to keep going. And we would literally, I think at the time, like, he was working at Pizza Express.
Wow.
I was working with Duke, and it was just this, we were in the studio for 3 weeks, and I just think we all just wanted it so much. And we gave that music everything. Like, we left nothing on the table. Like, and then Ocean Drive, it's a lot of people reference that record to me and say how much it was like a really great record to them. And
dude, it's for me, like, even for me, like in more current days, not necessarily when it came out, I wasn't really paying attention to commercial music back then when it came out, but I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a fucking insane record. And I think the thing that I love about it is the sonics of it as well, and how it all just it's escapism at its best for me in pop music.
Yeah. I mean, Duke was that was my favorite part about working with Duke was the he was a true electronic head. Like that was he loved it. And like, so he exposed me similar to when I was in the band before.
Yeah.
He just exposed me to a whole just catalog of music I've never heard before.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is sick. And I think that was what was really quite cool about when we were working together is I would just bring all those hooks and I'd fight for the hooks. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I remember we'd have really quite heated discourse about keeping elements in records and what was good and what was not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But his attention was, in terms of his attention to sonics on production, that's where he just fucking loved it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like it was great. It was a great inspirational time, man.
It's really interesting because I speak about this occasionally on the podcast, and I speak about this all the time in person with friends and things like that. But how important is it to you to actually have a team to write music with rather than by yourself? Like, what's the difference?
You get different results from me, and perhaps at different speeds. So, from a functional perspective, I just write music a lot slower when I'm on my own, like, because I just think too much and I'll rip it up 101 fucking times. It's a terrible habit. Like, I'm so quick. The editor in my brain is so quick to jump in that I ruin something before it even starts. Yeah. So part of working with people is just to allow that not to happen. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And just to let me be a bit freer. And then from a songwriting perspective, I just love the timbre of voices. So there's nothing more inspiring for me in terms of trying to write something when you have an artist or vocalist in a room that has a personality. Yeah. And when they sing, you hear that personality and they've got a perspective. So when you come together, it's really like, we're just getting out emotion. Do you know what I mean? And my job here is to refine that for you. Yeah. And then those two kind of go hand in hand. And just now where I've got more responsibility as a human, being a dad and stuff, like having people around me just allows all of that to happen much quicker. Like I'm not 22 anymore where I have nowhere to go. Do you know what I mean? And nothing like that.
I think that's the thing, which is weird for me. I found that recently, we were talking about it before we actually hit record, is like how busy your life can get, and then how little actually writing music, how little time you allow writing music to have of your life, which technically it should be the main thing still. But I think because we spent so many years doing it beforehand, it's almost like kind of like a 9 to 5 where it just gets done, and you just get it done when it needs to get done. It's not something that you necessarily, this sounds terrible, but necessarily want to go and do sometimes, but you're like, I have to do this, so I'm going to go enjoy the process. But it's like there's other things that's happening in my life that are actually taking priority, which isn't the best way to look at it, but it's strange how it works.
Well, life feeds music. Yeah. See, and I don't think music is symmetrical. Like, I don't think the time, like, if you're working on the right thing, it can be like a very productive time. But, you know, I'm not practicing anymore, you know, so I practice things like I experiment, don't get twisted. Like, I'm working with people as part of my experimentation, you know, like, it's like, if I work with someone in this way, I wonder what happens, you know, or at the moment I'm experimenting with like organization. Like, I've never been organized for my music. Like, it's a fucking mess. And like, I'm experimenting with what comes out if I'm more organized. Like, you know, if I'm working with this selection of samples for a bit, like, what does that feel like, you know, and all that. And
I've seen those project files, mate. I've seen those project files, and they make me sick.
Yeah, they make me sick. I know. I mean, when I see your like monthly production folders, and I'm like, this guy, bro, he's killing me. But bearing in mind, I don't finish anything unless it's coming out. So like, I'm not at a stage where I'm practicing anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think at the beginning, you gotta like do your fucking 10,000 hours and be a slave to get to the level where you go, all right, now I'm just gonna let the inspiration like go and acquire experiences and listen. For me, the best thing I could do for myself is listen to a music that I find influential, and then live life that makes me want to be creative. Do you know what I mean? And those two together, the rest of it is like kind of like, however I then get that out is like, it for me, it's like a means to an end. Like, and the more fun I can make it, the better. Do you know what I mean? Like, totally. So it's, you know, if we can have a conversation and we hang out, and then an hour of that, we just make a banger, like, that's great.
It's more fun. I mean? Yeah. I want to go back to what you just said, that you don't finish anything that's not going to come out. This is where, like, I think you and I differ, because how do you know that it's going to come out if you've not finished it?
I tend to take like a gamble everything on red. You know, I gamble on black. So like, I can kind of identify if I think something's good within quite early. Sometimes too early, like I can ruin it. Do you know what I mean? But like, I'll know if something's worth it and if it's the right time for it. And like with one of my songs at the moment, Where Did You Go? I remember the first demo was fucking terrible. It was just like a ploddy demo with just like a Zoom recording as the vocal. But I knew then it was something great in it. And I remember my label hated it. Everyone apart from my manager and my father-in-law, he's my main A&R, my father-in-law. Like, everyone else kind of weren't really into it. Deandra, my wife, was into it. And then I just plowed. You know, sometimes people can't hear what you're hearing. So that's probably, I generally don't try to avoid playing things to people too early. And like, I try and avoid feedback unless it's, I want the feedback. Do you know what I mean? And then you know, and then it's gone on to do what it's done now. And I'm used to gambling on a chorus, because there's no secret to my thing, but like what I trade on is a big chorus. If it's got a big chorus, I know that it's gonna be okay. Do you know what I mean? It's gonna go somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, because I think for me I'm kind of the opposite, where I write a record, play it out, test it out. If I love it and it reacts well, I'll live with it for a bit longer, tweak it a little bit, and then probably play it. I'm now at the point where a lot of my stuff I'm playing for 6 months before it comes out. More so to create more of a hype around it.
Yeah, it's a marketing form of marketing,
But I guess it's different with pop music.
I think club music is more experiential.
Yeah.
So like, obviously the perfect release would be something you can enjoy in the club, but also listen to outside the club.
Yeah.
Like, which I think you need hooks for that, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, so, but I actually, with the lockdown and then the world opening up a little bit more in the summer of 2021, I actually got a chance to have a bit more of a catalogue to play out. And that felt good.
Yeah.
Like I would play out the shittest sounding demos with no fear and just to gauge. And it was a really great tool to tweak, you know, like, oh, where am I losing them? Where do they like this bit?
Yeah.
Is the bass hitting enough, like, for them to dance, you know? And you don't always get that in the studio, to be fair. So yeah, working that far up front, I don't know if I'll ever have that again.
Yeah.
But again, something that I'm experimenting with, like finishing to have records to play, because I remember I read Duke's mention one time that to me, like, if you can play, I always do my Duke voice because he talks like that, like, if you play like for 60 minutes. I remember he said one time, like, you know, if you can play 60 to 90 minutes of all your own music, like, you're an artist at that point.
Yeah.
It's a very light definition of an artist, but I always remember that. And like, it does, when you play, even if it's unreleased, like, if you're performing, it's most of your own stuff, it feels fucking great.
It's the best.
It's like, this is why they're here.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's the best.
Obviously there's selector DJs that are fucking sick, like one of my favorite being Jack Master, do you know what I mean, and all that, but like it's kind of for me as a producer artist, like, it's good to play your tunes, man.
I think it's also, it just mean, especially if you're writing a lot of stuff and you're playing a lot of stuff that's unreleased, like, people think you're being a selector, and then you're not actually being one. You're just playing your own. It's something I love about that. And then it's like
wild,
everyone's asking for IDs, and you're like, yeah, that's mine. It's not ever coming out. Sorry, but like, I love that shit. I want to talk about the transition from the period in your life when you were writing for other people to the period in life when Jax Jones came around, because I think it's like a big part of a lot of people's careers, where sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and fucking do it. And
it's why I call myself Jax Jones.
Yeah.
Man. You know, to do something on your own, you just gotta go. Like, yeah.
And so let's talk about that a little bit. Like, what had you done previously, and what was the kind of process in your head, and what was the thoughts and feelings going on in your head to go, I need to do this by myself?
I think I was always trying to just find my place in the music industry. So like my journey wasn't asymmetric. It wasn't like a linear journey, like where I was always trying to be an artist. I've started off, so it was kind of like, by any means necessary, I will survive in music. And so I was a session player. You know, I learned classical guitar. And I realized this the other day, like, because people always go, do you get nervous? I don't really get nervous. Like, no matter how big the audience is, it doesn't bother me. And I've been performing since I was 8 years old, like doing guitar recitals. Do you know what I mean? So like, the kind of, you know, the natural, when I wasn't making money as a producer, which was at the time very difficult back in 2006. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, back then that was just like old geezers. That's who producers were. Like, do you know what I mean? So we kind of, I was session playing. So I was playing in churches, and I was a music director for N-Dubs at the time.
Oh,
and
really?
Yeah, man. I was playing. I did N-Dubs first, all the way up to like their third album, like all their arena tours and stuff. I was managing. I was essentially producing the show. So like, you'd hire the musician and put together the translation of their album live. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So all the arrangements and shit. So it's very much like in my skill set, and then I'd play guitar. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? So that I learned so much from them, to be fair. Yeah, and that dragged me out of my overdraft, do you know what I'm saying? And my student loans and all that shit. And then I came off sessioning because I was just like, okay, I'm not the best guitarist. So how can I now grow? And so that's when I joined us. We started this band, we got signed, and I was really lucky in that respect, to go to the next level, be exposed to what we had. But again, that wasn't quite right. But that was the first time I had a taste of being an artist and thinking about, okay, cool. So like being an artist is really, it's quite a good place to be. Do you know what I'm saying? I tried being a manager for a bit, and that didn't feel so great. I think managers have a pretty thankless job. Shout out to all the managers, because you're doing the Lord's work, really, if I'm being honest. And then I tried producing for other people. I just found that really hard. Like at first, I had my first like #1 with this band called the Vamps. Can We Dance? Like a whole song.
Did you do that?
I
didn't know that. That's amazing.
It's like, oh my god, the plaque it smashed, which is probably an omen. It like fell off the water. That shit. Let's not talk about that record again. Mate, I did Peter Andre.
I didn't know this.
I did Peter Andre. I did some N-Dub stuff. I did that Playing with Fire, the guitar solo on that. That was me. I did Comfortable for Talisa. I did some really, at the time I was listening to like shitloads of Taylor Swift. So I was like trying to do that kind of like guitar pop thing. And I remember at the time as well, you remember like Eminem, like the songs he did with Rihanna, Love the Way You Lie and shit. I was like, man, this is it. I'm gonna do fucking these drums and guitar, like,
this English crazy boy.
yeah. And then, but I found it really hard writing for other people because it was, once you do the song and you thought it was amazing, then it would just be theirs to do what they want with it. And like, and I think when I met my manager, Dan Stacey, who was managing Duke at the time, he had me doing session work with Duke. And then the conversation was like, this is why I need to try some dance music. And I just did the same thing I did before. I just rinsed myself in it. And Duke, as I said, was a bit of an encyclopedia. And so I just got the best parts of it as well. Like it was like, it weren't like really surface level. Like I went deep. Do you know what I mean? And I fell in love with, I was like, this is a lot like rap. There's like a lot of history here, and there's a lot of soul in this as well.
But
like,
it came out around the same time.
Yeah, and it's a black genre house music. Do you know what I'm saying? And I was like, and then I looked at people like Armand Van Helden. I was like, oh, he's kind of cool, man. Like I relate to this. Do you know what I'm saying? So and then I think so I was like, cool, I'm going to be an artist. This makes sense. Like I'm going to try and do this. And so it just became like exploring that. And that's where you got the name Jax Jones, because the kind of just doing something on your own, not trying to be in a group, just standing on your own 2 feet and trying to do it, that comes from being on your Jax Jones.
So for any Americans that are listening, Jax Jones means alone, if you didn't know that.
Alone, yeah. Do something on your own. Yeah. It would change my life, man. Like we got dropped from the label. I think I had, from all my record deal and all that, I had $5,000 left. I had to make that last, and I was doing some session work to keep it going. That felt weird, going backwards. Yeah. And I remember when we did I Got You, that was just like, fuck. Like, and that song got a Grammy nomination and a Brit nomination, and it went #1. And some people say it's one of their favorite songs of all time. And, you know, that was a song that I started as about my girlfriend, who's now my wife. Like it was just like a romantic record that I was trying to do about her. And so like house music has blessed me. Do you know what I'm saying? I can't complain, man. I'm very lucky.
I love that, man. I love that. Coming out with your first single, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, was Housework.
I had one, but I had a couple before that. Housework was like the first truly successful one.
Okay.
So like, I Got You was kind of like my first record.
Yeah, because that was with Duke though, right?
Yeah, I kind of got lost in that being named as a feature, and everyone thought I sang it. I did not sing it. I wish I could sing like that, bro. And then I did a record called Go Deep, which came out on Duke's label, which was still like super credible. Like if you go, it was like sampling an old break, and it was super like it fit quite Balearic. And that was when I was still like deep in trying to like, I don't know, sonically challenge myself. And then I did this song called Yeah Yeah Yeah, which was like a FIFA soundtrack, and I remember like that was just fun. But Housework was like the first one. I was like, oh, okay, like what's going on here?
That was when I obviously knew you from I Got You, or knew you like vaguely through I Got You, and then Housework came, and that was for me when I was like, okay, he's going to be around for a while. And I think I actually met. When did that come out?
2016 to late 2016, like October or something.
And then I think I met you 2017, March 2017 at, in Miami for the first time.
Oh, that would have been for Groove Cruise or something?
No, that was for WMC's. Winning
Miami Music Week.
Yeah, Miami Music Week. We all had that dinner at the back of that. Can you remember that?
Oh my God, yes. And it was MK was there, and like we were all on that big table. I think it's like,
it was a bunch of us.
That was a fun dinner, man. It was. And you were so sweet, bro. Like we've been friends ever since, man.
Yeah, literally. Like I remember sitting down and talking with you, and like legit, like this dude's cool. Like he's gonna be around for a while. Which like you know how it is. You meet so many people in this industry, and it's everyone can relate to something to each other, right? But there's some people that just stick in your life for a bit longer, and I think that's really important. But going from Housework to where you're at now, you've had some insane kind of milestones that's happened. From Housework, what's that feeling when you're like, okay, this record's done well, like I need to follow it up? What, like I've never personally had that, if you know what I mean. I've never had a hit record. I've
had that Hallelujah, like was big, man. I love that tune.
Yeah, but I think with Hallelujah, I never had that feeling I need to follow it up. Like, because I was like, it's Hallelujah. It's just, it's its own thing, if you know what I mean. It's and realistically, like, I didn't write it. It's fucking Candy Staten. Candy Staten wrote that, like in the 80s.
Yeah, but the bottom end on that, I remember I've been trying to replicate that bottom end, bro. I love that bottom.
Just call me, mate. I got you.
It's so groovy,
bro. But like, I think, yeah. So what is it like when you have to follow up something? What is the pressure? Is it especially at that stage in your career where you've like, I'm on my own now. I'm doing Jax Jones as an artist, no pun intended, and I have to deliver.
It felt quite natural. Okay. Like I've always worked in a way where I've had to prove myself. Like they were from the beginning. You know, my parents kicked me out over it was very turbulent, but ultimately I left home because they just weren't into the fact I was doing music.
Yeah.
So it was always about that. Like you just had to get it done. So I was always probably to my detriment a little bit results based. So I was like, cool, I've done this. Now I gotta go. I gotta do another one. Do you know what I'm saying? And I remember Jonas Raffsman. He was we used to see him a lot, and we used to do a lot of the same gigs before he went super, super deep.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to him, bro, like, I'm so frustrated. Like, I've done these songs with Duke and I just can't seem to get one away from myself. Like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? I remember him saying, just trust in it. It's in you. You can do it.
Yeah.
Like, you just got to follow it. It just is there already. Yeah. So you just got to allow it to happen. You know what I mean? And you write catchy things. That's what you do. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, all right, cool. I'll keep going. And so when Housework happened, it weren't it literally was like, yes,
Yeah.
people are listening now, and now I'm just gonna fucking go. Like,
Yeah.
and I remember You Don't Know Me, I had a 90-second demo of You Don't Know Me, and I said to my manager, we were in Battersea, I pulled up at his house in the car, I said, this is it. This song's gonna be huge. And he was like, really? I was like, trust me, bro.
I could
like,
only imagine Dan saying really as well.
really? I said, trust me, bruv. I think I called this song at the time, it's called Circles. And I just wanted to make, at the time you had I'm a little bit of a fanboy. So what I do is I tend to obsess over a record and go, I want to do something that feels or has like the same amount of elements, you know? So like at the time you had, do you remember Infinity Inc?
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, that's so fucking cool. It's just a kick and a fucking bass. Like, what the fuck? And I was just, we wrote that, and all I had was the drums and the song. And then when I got the bass in there, it was just, all I had was a drum and the song. And I said to Dan, it was huge. Because just the song was just so fucking cool. Like, Ray just...
She kills it as well.
Vomited cool on that song, bro. Yeah.
And then when with the bass, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that bass line, because I know there's like, we've spoken about this plenty of times, and I know there was controversy behind this, but I kind of want to get it out in the air of like what you did for the original as well.
I mean, I don't write to samples. I try to avoid it because I think that's when your music can become a bit cookie cutter. I tried to treat unless it's some fucking obscure sample that isn't gonna influence the melody. Like, I don't really like it when you try to write in that way. It's a bit too contrived for me. So like, so when we did that, I treated it like a drum machine and a vocal. Like, I loved that feeling of house music from back in the day, where it's like DJ Dion, or, you know, what Daft Punk would feel like before they went full disco, you know, where it just sounded like there was one synth, one vocal, and a drum machine. I fucking love that shit. Do you know what I mean? So I think I just did that on a 909 and a little bass line and a vocal. And the bass line was whatever. But I knew it was when I was finishing the song off, it was in the same key as Book of Shade. And I remember I was just a bit obsessed with everything they were doing and a bit obsessed with that bass line. So I thought, I wonder what it sound like underneath. And that's how, and it just happened. I was like, wow, this is either fucking great or terrible. Like, the guys cleared it, big up Book of Shade and Mandy, and they came to the Brits, you know, when they got nominated, and they just were like, you know, it's our kids' favorite song. This is just fucking amazing, you know. And that song, it's obviously one of my biggest records, and for them it's their biggest ever thing. And who would have thought that bass line from a seminal techno record? Huge, I remember at the time, their story is they slowed it down to be they sped up a house bass line and put it on a techno tempo. I guess I took that and slowed it down to be a house record. You know what I mean? Yeah, and with hip hop elements in it. And it's not the first time it's been sampled. Although I wouldn't say I'm a fan of the Will I Am sampled version, from like an old Black Eyed Peas record. But yeah, I think sampling is always going to be tricky. Like, as a 30-year-old now, sometimes I get little irks when I hear something that's sampled. So I can imagine how everyone might have felt who was like a fan of the original. You feel like it's been fucked up, but I think from my perspective, it was quite a soulful approach. I didn't write to that sample, in the essence of trying to have a hit with that sample. I'd never work like that.
No. But I think you hit the nail on the head there, where you get irked being a 34-year-old man. Like, I think when that record, when did that come out? 5 years ago?
It came out in 2017.
Yeah, so a while ago. So
5 years ago.
Yeah, so like 5 years ago, we were younger and didn't have necessarily the knowledge that we have now. And back then, the generation was, this sounds mad, but pre-COVID. So the generation of house music was very different to what it is now. And now there's so many records being sampled that just irk me on a daily fucking basis. And I think maybe that you kind of hit the nail on the head, that back then the people that were getting irked by that sample were kind of in the same situation as what we're in now, right?
A little bit, like, you know, you can get, as you get older, you get a bit more jaded as well. So you're like, oh man, like, why are you fucking with a classic or whatever? I would argue, I guess at the time there was but prior to that, during like the deep house renaissance in 2013, there were obviously anyone. I remember we used to say, like, just find an R&B record, put some piano on it. It's a number one. Do you know what I'm saying? And You Don't Know Me kind of came out in a barren time. It wasn't like a season for house music at the time. And so, so I would argue that I wasn't being cookie cutter, but and I definitely hear what you're saying about now, though now the amount of music is much higher. Like the volume of releases is wild. Something like 60,000 songs come out every day on Spotify. Like there is that in combination with the access to information, like the amount of YouTube tutorials to sound like this or do this or how this was made, which all comes from a good place. But I think with all of that, there's a lot more average music, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think
now, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
I think also for me, it's more so because there's so much coming out, you have to stand out. And what's the easiest way to stand out is by putting
a sample.
With a sample of like a number one record from the early 2000s, where somebody else has worked really hard to write the song for months, and then you kind of I'm sounding like a massive dickhead by saying that, but that's truly how I feel, really. Like but I understand the business side of it. It is the business side of it.
I think like for me, my favorite sampling records is repurposing. So like when you take something and contextualize it in a completely different way. Yeah. And that's when it feels really like, whoa, that's really clever. So like, have you frozen?
No, my camera just stopped working, but I can switch.
Okay, cool. Do you want to do that first or?
No, we're good.
You're back. Oh, he's back. Yeah. You could like, you know, like I remember like the whole Bad Boy era, like when Diddy was just at his head. I'm talking about that because I just watched his documentary on Can't Stop Won't Stop on Netflix. But like that, taking soul records and turning them into these fucking cool as fuck pop like rap records were just, it was sick. Do you know what I mean? Like the Diana Ross, one of my favorite records of all time is a Mo Money Mo Problems, and the samples Diana Ross. It just is just fucking dope. Like and they just, obviously you're never gonna hear that if it were like someone spitting on that in that way. Like that didn't happen. And I think so that's probably, that's when it's my favorite, where there's some artistic element put on top.
Kanye, Jay-Z, like for me, like do it the best. Like I heard something on radio the other day, and you I don't even know who it is. It was a grime record sampling In for the Kill.
Oh, that's Tion Wayne.
Mate, it's fucking awful. I'm sorry. Like
it's a little bit.
I'm sorry if you're listening, Tion, and I wouldn't often say this about, but I'm like, how did that, like, there's so much fucking good music out there. Like, how did the people at Radio 1 decide that this record actually gets on the play? And I know I sound like a dickhead, and I'm sure I'm happy if somebody says this about my records, but there's so much quality music out there that, how did that get in? And it's purely because of the LaRue In for the Kill. It's not for any other reason. Just go play the original or go play the Scream remix, because it's better.
It's better. Or if he sampled the Scream remix, perhaps that would have been even more lit. Yeah, you know, show a bit more width. No, but I think that kind of reflects in the success of a record as well, though. If I'm being honest with you, so like, you know, like the kind of, yes, it will be successful to a certain extent and be a moment in time, but will it go to do big numbers? We have to wait and see. Like my favorite sample record recently that stands out for me was the A Craze Do It record. Like
genius.
When you listen to it, you can hear that it's just pure just raw, and it's hard to imitate that. Like it's just that perfect synergy, alchemy of the production and the sample. It's like it, and I think that's why it captured the world. Do you know what I'm saying? And it will like it. You can't really. You can have like derivative versions of that, but like it you know when you've got it. Like it's like that. It's just that thing, that shit that I talked about earlier. And just woo, I think we've got that special chemistry here, guys. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I also think you know when you've got it when everyone tries to emulate it.
That's also true.
And I think that's the amazing thing with that we see a lot in all music, right? You have somebody that's the originator, and then out of the originator you get all the impersonators, which I have no issue with the impersonators because they're all doing their thing. We all are to a certain extent because we're all taking influence from something, but it's very, I think when people start copying your sound is when you know you've done it, but then you have to fucking move on and create something new.
You have to move on, yeah. I think if I'm being honest with you though, Will, like what you're describing is a symptom of just generally the music industry as a whole. Like, you know, like you sampling and dance music go hand in hand like cheese on toast. Yeah. It's our biggest house records of all time, all fucking samples. You know, like one of my favorite ones, you know, is like some of the old Armand Van Helden stuff. Like the drums were from other records, and the whole thing was a fucking sample, you know, like, and obviously Norman Cook, another one of my people that I look up to, like you know, there's an art to that. 100%. Yeah. And like, and so I don't think we can ever hate on sampling, but I think it's, when it feels like it's being sampled for financial purposes, I think that's when it feels a bit weird. And I guess, but again, that's normal. You know, you like, if you trail through history, you've always got the songs that you don't remember. Like, oh yeah, I remember that. And you actually do the background around that time. There was shit that was similar. That I remember, like there was this hip hop. Obviously Sweet Dreams Eurythmics, like massive seminal record, right? Shout out to Eli Brown with that amazing edit that I've been slamming all summer. I remember Martin Solveig goes, "Don't play Sweet Dreams, please don't." And it's like, and then when I played Eli Brown's version, it's like, out of all the remixes of Sweet Dreams, I must say, this is one of the best. Like, but so shout out Eli Brown. But I remember I was doing my research, and there was a song that was trending on TikTok, this Silent Circle record, "Touching the Night," and it's kind of Euro pop, but very similar to Sweet Dreams. And it would have been around the same time. You've never heard of this record, right? But it was a top 10. But my point is like, it just happens all the time where you have songs that are a bit more of a flash in the pan, but copy the bigger thing. It's just a common. You need more music, and now more than ever, we need to. You know, the industry wants as much music as possible because it's like, fuck, you can stream forever
and you make money forever. And you got all these artists selling their back catalogs for millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and you're like, it's the music industry's back at making money, which is really exciting, I think, for everyone to a certain extent. And I think, yes, there's going to be a lot more fodder out there, but hey, if it means that everyone's earning money, I'm all for it. And
to be honest, I've had to check myself because like the streaming kind of fucked up my love of music a little bit. Like I noticed, and for years that I wasn't listening to music anymore. It would just be on. Like, and so obviously I'd be listening to music, but like I was like, why am I not inspired? Like I used to fucking listen to the same record for months.
In your CD player in your car, or like on your Walkman, or the vinyl. Like, dude, I totally agree with this. Totally agree. And it becomes more throwaway, right?
Yeah. And you're not, like, one of your skills as a music producer is having a big bank of music in your head. Like, you know, your references, you're as good as your, like, the music you know. If you're not listening to interesting shit, your music ain't going to be that interesting. That's what I've found. So, like, if I'm listening to, like, really inspiring shit for me, I always make better music because I'm, like, pushing myself. So, like, streaming kind of fucked that up. I know. And then what it also did, like, whereas before, I'll take a record based on my opinion of it, or perhaps my friends might tell me they love it, so that would influence me. Now, I'll look at the fucking stats, and I go, "Oh, this must not be a very good record because it didn't do that well." And I'm like, fuck. Like, no other point would you be so transparent about how successful a record is. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, but now I've got one playlist called the Ultimate Playlist, and I put every song that I like, and I only listen to that playlist.
Wow.
And I shuffle it, and it's really sick because like, oh, I haven't heard that in a long time. I was like, oh, and it's making me more inspired, man.
I like that a lot. I think looking at numbers, whilst I've spoken about this a few times on here as well, and it's that the battle between the artist and the businessman or businesswoman, right? Where you want to make the best possible music, but you also have to feed the beast of the business person. And
you need to survive. Otherwise, you should just go and get another job and make music.
Right. But if you think about it, the most authentic, I personally feel the most authentic music actually is the most successful music business wise as well in the long term. If you're writing the most authentic pop music, if you're writing the most authentic techno music, whatever you're making, I feel like eventually people really believe in it and get it. Like Pharrell, I've never been in the studio with him. Does he ever go in the studio go, yeah, this is going to stream? I don't know. Exactly.
I think that in his heyday, like definitely Pharrell would have thought that, you know what, this is going to go. Like, I remember we used to laugh, like, because Pharrell basically made, in that Neptune's era of like when they were just killing it, he basically made the same record with the same sounds every time. It was fucking amazing. Like this guy would just get the clav, the clavinet out or whatever it was, and he would just make the same song.
Yeah.
but what would change is the personality, right?
Exactly.
Like that, and the person on top would give it life in a different way, and that was Pharrell's USP. Like he'd bring that character out of the artist and put them on like quite a left field setting, but still poppy. You know, I definitely thought he would have been cashing checks like this is going to go.
Oh, like, insane amount of cash. But
like this is going to be big, like whatever.
But I feel like what happens now to a certain extent, especially in pop music, and tell me if I'm wrong because I'm not in pop music, but like it feels like with the labels, with everybody involved, it's like, is this going to stream? And what do we need to do to make this stream?
I think like that ultimately, if you're making pop music, like that is that one of your jobs. Okay. Yeah, that's one of your jobs. Like, you know, you're there to make music that's going to make or reach a lot of people. Yeah. Like, and by definition, that must have enough that gets people interested but doesn't challenge them too much. You know, and the other stuff, like, you know, we've mentioned them on this podcast, like artists that combine artistry with and becomes pop. And you can't manufacture that. It's kind of like they become pop, like, and so then their job is to keep doing the same thing, you know, and but also that presents different challenges, but that's another conversation. But I think that for pop music, your job is to make it reach and accessible, and so there's an element of having the zeitgeist in there, and I think but the best creators know how to protect themselves and only expose themselves to that point of thinking at a certain part of the process.
Yes. Yeah.
So the initial first day I write a song, which is all my favorite part of probably the process and probably the final bit, but that bit is free and we just let it see what happens. Yeah. And it's about trying to find something special in the air that is in the air that day. And then I make it pop. Do you know what I mean? So, and when I think about big pop guys now, I don't know, like the ones that have longevity, that's what they do. Like they harness the creativity that's in the air that day. That's something special. And then they apply the experience to it afterwards. You know, does it hit hard enough? Is the chorus big enough? And that's when you can go back and write, you know, or tweak. Some artists hate tweaking, you know. I'm like, let's tweak. Like but sometimes that's fun because it's like, you know, you want it to be the perfect version of itself, you know. And so I don't think it's all as cynical as you think. they're definitely going to be like, I guess, people that think like that, but there's a place for them too, you know, for every, you know, so I think, you know, and if they enjoy it, that is what it is. Like, I remember I used to think about Kygo a lot, and like, you know, it's hard sometimes, me being the way I am, you know, and the way sometimes I view myself. It's like, oh, that guy's really successful. Like, maybe I need to do something like that. Yeah. And I remember, but then as you grow out of that, you know, I mean, some people never, but I've started to grow out of it. You kind of go, do you know, that's what he does. And I can't actually do what he does. Like, I couldn't make that record that he makes as many times as he makes it. Like, it's just not in my personality. And I think that's the bit you can't change, I guess, is that thing, who you are. And that's what you mean by authenticity. Like, you can try and do it and try and fake it, but there's only so far that will take you. You probably won't be able to keep it up because it's hard work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're right there, 100%. Out of all the success that you've had and are gonna have in the future, are you happy?
Now I am. I wasn't happy before. I think like before I was making music on very different terms psychologically.
When's before? When's before?
I would say up to like a year and a half ago.
Okay, wow.
Like psychologically, music was a prison. Do you know what I'm saying? It was like this thing that I had to serve, and if I weren't serving it, like I mean, the words are shit. That was shit. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't doing what, you know. Yeah, and I remember.
Let's dig deeper on that. Let's dig deeper on that though. Like, what is shit? Why? Like, what headspace were you in to make you to allow you to feel like that?
It's more like my self-esteem was so tied to it. So you're kind of like, if I didn't make a good song that day, or I didn't think I you know, was performing in a way that I considered satisfactory, I was shit. And then that becomes a weird cycle, because then you don't want to do it and you avoid it, you know, and then so it was a struggle. Do you know what I mean? And I spent years trying to make the music making process more enjoyable for me, because it was just hard. Do you know what I mean? I remember doing remixes for me was one of the hardest things, because it wasn't natural for me to change, because my style is pop. When I was giving a pop record, I found it very hard to
make
something else. And I used to agonize over it, and it was so hard. And I remember, my Dan would always talk about it, and you know, no one really knows, and I didn't even really know why I was like that until probably the last year and a half. And so I'm happier now. I'm less, and it's not because I'm successful, by the way. Because I noticed that no matter how successful it was, it would just be the voice of more the negative talk will just come and go, well, that was that. Now you gotta keep going. Or there's always someone better than you, or someone more bigger, or whatever it is. And it was I was just a slave to it. Do you know what I'm saying? And perhaps that's part of why my output was the way it was, but I still want to continue making good music, or music that I think is going to do well, but I just want to make it from a different place psychologically. So I'm not it's not from a place of stress and pain. I'm more okay, cool. Let's just try and make it because we want to. Do you know what I'm saying? It's I will compare it to when you're nice to people, or you give to charity or whatever. I'm not being nice because I'm scared that you won't like me. I'm being nice now because I just want to be nice. Do you get me? So that's what I'm trying to do now.
What's the process to get to that though for you?
Oh man, I think it's a mixture of when during the lockdown I did a bunch of therapy. And we were having a child, so my daughter's now coming up to 2. The combination of that two things just helped me kind of step back a little bit. Having a child is, which is otherwise quite a selfish act.
Yeah, massively.
For me anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about my art. And you wanker, come on. So
it
like,
is, and it has to be, right? I don't like, sorry to butt in, and we'll go back to what you were saying.
Yeah, totally.
But there's a point in your career where we all have friends that haven't had any success in music, and it sounds awful, but they're just not selfish enough.
You have to get very selfish at one point, yeah. And but then having my daughter was the first time that I was outside of that.
Yeah.
And serving someone just to serve someone. Do you know what I mean? And so that was great. And then it's like, there's something I can love outside of this thing that feels really possessive for me.
Yeah.
And then I think I started off after, because literally lockdown hit. I finished Bricks and Academy, like we sold it out, and then lockdown hit. The day after, I remember I thought I was fucking Noel Gallagher. I was like, fuck COVID on the stage, and the next thing, 2 years later, fucking COVID. Do you know what I mean? And and I remember I took 3 weeks off. I was like, cool. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try and get to the bottom of this. Like, why I'm so uninspired and unenamored by the act of making music. So first saw some coaches, you know, did that. All felt quite superficial.
Yeah.
And then it was when I started looking at therapy, and then kind of, and I remember he kept saying to me, big up Adam, he says to me, I'm not a coach, so I have no practical advice for you. And I remember I would talk about certain things, and he'll say that sounds like more of a coaching issue than a psychological issue. So we dig, and then I guess kind of like I would recommend it as well. Generally, if someone's gonna have a kid, men, like it's worth just checking in with yourself, because if you can start your relationship with your kids with you knowing more about yourself. And you don't always have to have a problem. You just knowing a bit more about yourself in like a really safe environment. You can kind of, you know what you want to teach your kids, and it won't just be like bias that you picked up growing up. Like you can actually make a decision about what you think. Do you know what I mean? So it was just great. But through that, I learned about me and my experiences and how that all contributed to how I feel. Yeah. And I didn't speak about it directly. We just would be going and through that, now I know when those feelings are coming up and where they're coming from and like why they're there. And they've been really amazing for me. They've been there to protect me, to help me avoid perhaps things that I was finding traumatic. Do you know what I'm saying? So like, because of that, but at the same time, it's educating them that I'm not in that place anymore. So we can make music from a different place. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? It's so it's a day by day thing. Some days you feel trashy, some days you don't, but like you kind of, overall it's fucking night and day. Yeah. Like I'm less like, I'm just like, I'm like, let's see it through. Like, this is great. This is more fun for me. Do you know what I mean?
Which I think is so nice to hear as a mate, but also just is like generally in life to see somebody enjoy what they do, because I think so many of us throughout life, we have the best jobs anyone can ever wish for, and we still go through life hating it or really sad or really in a state of comparing ourselves to each other's and not being able to work on ourselves. I do it regularly, if you know what I mean. I think if somebody didn't, it would be wrong for them to say they didn't. But I truly think therapy is like a one-stop shop to make you a better human being, generally. And whether that's to be a better father, whether that's to be a better mother, whether that's to be a better artist, whether that's just to be a better human, I think it's just important.
Yeah, you kind of, I think the physical nature of talking over a period of time with someone that's there to allow that space to happen. Yeah. There's a biological shift that happens because you're allowed to go, if you open yourself to what you call it, those processes that you've built up over the years, they're allowed to come out within that environment. And that's when you retrain them. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you might get a different response to what you think you were going to get. And it's like that, that can only come with time. Like, and doing it for a while. It's a fucking luxury though. Like, you know, and I'm blessed the mental health industry is not incredibly expensive, you know, and
in the UK, so we're really lucky.
In the UK, we're very lucky, and people, you know, I was surprised at the cost. You know what I'm saying? Like of doing it. So, like it's made my relationship with music so much better.
No, man, it's really nice to hear, and I think like I've been really fortunate throughout my whole life. Like my parents are therapists, and I've been brought up in like well, you know how I've been brought up, but I've always been brought up around drug and alcohol rehabs and kind of in people at the worst stages of their life that you can possibly have before death, really. And it's always been a massive, I've always seen the progression of somebody before therapy and somebody after therapy. And it's so nice to hear so many of my friends talk about being in therapy. I think it's so important, and it's slowly becoming less of a hoo-ha subject where it's like you're mentally sick because you're having therapy. No, we're all fucking mentally sick. We all have issues. We all deal with things differently. We all need to talk about it, and we all need to learn how to process. And I think having a therapist that has zero emotional attachment to you, like they're not your mum, they're not your dad, they're not your girlfriend, they're not your boyfriend, they're not your son or your daughter, or they're not your best mate. There's zero agenda. And the only agenda is to help you learn, right? That's what you're paying for. I think it's really important. And if that can help people become better humans, but also make better music and enjoy their life, like fucking hell, you've worked so hard over the years. You've had a very successful career, and for you not to enjoy that is fucking wild.
So I think it's like honestly, it was wild to a point, because it was like, what more do I need to do to make myself happy here?
Well,
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think I want to talk about this briefly, but like when you're in that and you're like, what do I need to do more? Like how little does materialistic objects make you even unhappier afterwards?
Honestly, obviously it depends what makes you tick, right? So like I definitely love a bit of validation. So you get that kind of like ego boost. Everyone go, oh, sick, bro, like sick car, or like that, whatever. Look, I still wear jewelry.
Of course,
I still got all of that, but like the kind of, you know, because that kind of ghetto fabulous, you know, like black.
Yeah, man, it's how you grew up,
that's what
right?
you do. Yeah. And so like but you're right, it wears off, and you're looking for that you're looking for, you know, that next thing to make you feel like that. And I'm very lucky I never really got swamped in it, because I'm not a very extreme person. Like I'm very I try to be quite self-aware, but I remember reading somewhere that, you know, if you don't reframe it for yourself, basically no matter, even if you become fucking Mark Zuckerberg level wealth, you know, you will still
fuck yourself,
struggle. Because you're just then a slave to trying to generate wealth. You could spend it all, you know, just to fill that void for validation. And it's just like, you have to reframe it, because you're just on the treadmill and you're serving it rather than it serving you, you know. And I think that's the bit, you know, I remember when people go, you have an amazing life, whatever it is, and it's when that didn't really make sense to me. I think I was like, what do you mean? Like, this is fucking pain, bruv. Like, you know, but then I guess now I get it.
It's also really hard when you're in that situation, right, where you're so fucking busy. Like we spoke about it right before, like we turned the podcast on. It's like, you don't want to complain because you know your life is better than most people. And you don't want to complain because you're doing what you've wanted to do for the whole of your life. But there's still a but, and it's working out what that but is.
You can change though.
100%.
I think that's the other thing. Like, you know, comparison now is obviously a real thing now because you're kind of exposed to what everyone's doing like all the time, where you never were really before. And I think that if stepping away from that, I would say now my desires are slightly different. You know, like, you know, I love where, you know, I still love making records and I still like that, but touring is perhaps a little less exciting for me, you know, like, because I've got a family and the feeling of being a dad, I find like I get a big buzz from that. And like, I really, you know, being around for her is probably a little bit more important to me now. It is made like, so like kind of,
but it also,
it's hard.
This is what I want to say. With you saying that, it sounds like you struggle to say that because
I am.
And I think, is it because the feelings aren't actually, because it's actually how you feel, but you don't want to sound ungrateful because of what you have and that you're touring and there's people that aren't. I don't know what it is, but what is it?
I think it's the reason why I started with the word comparison is because you see other people living out their careers and obviously like you think you should be doing that. There's still that part of you in there and I don't want to, as you say, feel unappreciative or at odds with what is needed to be relevant now. Do you know what I'm saying? But also I have like, if I was to dig deep, I'm like, wow, I really just want to be at home a bit more. And then if I then analyze what gives me a buzz, you know, the biggest buzz is when for me is when I have a record that does the ocean drives or when You Don't Know Me is like that. I love that shit, you know? And so it's like, okay, I can make a life doing that and still be around. Do you know what I mean? And like, so, you know, it's just, it's hard, you know, because you're having to say no a bit more. And I mean, without sounding like a cliche, we all know the effect of traveling a lot on your art. Your music suffers the more you travel, for me anyway, like, because it's like, I've noticed during lockdown, it was loud and clear, like before I started touring loads, I proper started touring in 2018. Sorry, we've got, let me just put this inside quickly. One sec, bro. Deondra's just bought me something to eat, but the flies are at it. Hold on. Give me a sec. Before I started like touring and in 2018, like 2017, touring loads, you know, I was making music every day. Like I would come into the studio 9 a.m. and work till whenever I could. Do you know what I'm saying? And that repetition would make good shit. And the same happened in lockdown, you know, where I just did it every day. I looked after my daughter and I made music every day. And then I made more music that was successful. And I was just like, do you know what? It's definitely telling me something here. Like, whereas when I was touring, I always felt like I was fucking hanging on by the skin of my teeth, like, because the juggle, do you know what I mean?
So, I guess that's the difference between writing records that are really successful and that you can actually earn money from, where and then it takes away the need to tour, right? Yeah,
a little bit. Like, but I feel like, you know, if you make club music, that's kind of what that's part of your culture to be in it. It's like kind of, I guess it's kind of, I do reflect on that a lot, like the nature of that. And I did a lot more clubs this year, and I was like, man, I when I meet other club DJs, I just don't love it as much as they do. Like, they fucking love it. Like,
yeah, mate, I love it.
Do you know what I mean? And we would have this conversation. I'm like, bro, like, you know, like, are you sure you want to go and do that for him? And he's like, yeah, I fucking love it, dude. I'm like, fair play, man. you know, and I think that's the bit about being authentic, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm making that transition, see how it feels like. Do you know what I mean?
No, I love it, man. I love it. We've just done an hour and pretty much 45 minutes. I want to wrap it up with one more question that I've started to ask a little bit, and this isn't necessarily music based, but if you could give advice right now, for right this moment, it can change tomorrow, but what would that advice be?
To whom is it aimed at?
Anybody, not in music, just life. Oh. Because I think this podcast obviously talks a lot about music, but I think a lot of these people that are listening aren't necessarily even in music industry or anything like that. And I think we all have a life.
Yeah. Oh man. I think something that I'm thinking about a lot is try to work out what your definition of freedom is and chase that aggressively.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, in life you have your fitness, your freedom, and your family. So like your relationships, then your health. I think the bit that makes you happy at the end is freedom. And I think if you set that as your goal and work out, it might change over time, but if you chase it, you kind of live a life that you want. Do you know what I mean?
Love that, man. Love that. Dude, thank you for being on. I love you. Keep safe and keep doing what you're doing.
I love you too, bro.
Peace.
I can't wait to see you soon.
I know, definitely. Right, let's wrap this up. Big love. And that is a wrap. Love that conversation. Big love to Jax for coming on. Thank you for listening. Please share. Please send it with everyone. Keep safe. And I will see you next time.